The town of Hollow Creek was a forgotten place. Time seemed to stand still there. The buildings were old, their paint peeling like scabs. The air always felt heavy, thick with unspoken stories and lingering regrets, but nothing held more mystery than the town's graveyard. Hidden behind the old church, the graveyard was shrouded in an unnatural silence. Towering oaks with gnarled branches cast long skeletal shadows across the weathered tombstones. The townsfolk whispered tales of lost souls, their voices trapped within the graveyard's iron gates. They spoke of cold spots and disembodied whispers. It was a place most avoided, especially after dark. The graveyard was a place of sorrow, but it was also a place of secrets. Secrets buried deep beneath the earth, waiting for someone foolish enough to unearth them. And as fate would have it, that someone was about to arrive in Hollow Creek. 16-year-old Alex was different. He wasn't afraid of the whispers, he was drawn to them. New to Hollow Creek, he had heard the stories. The graveyard's grim reputation only fueled his curiosity. He was a seeker of the unknown, a moth to the flickering flame of mystery. Alex saw the fear in the eyes of the townsfolk, heard it in their warnings, but he couldn't resist the pull of the graveyard. He felt an inexplicable connection to it, a sense that something within its confines held answers he was seeking. He decided to see for himself if the legends were true. One cool autumn evening, as the sun began its descent, Alex found himself standing at the rusted gates of the graveyard. He could feel a change in the air, a drop in temperature that sent a shiver down his spine. He took a deep breath and pushed the gates open, their hinges groaning a mournful protest. The air grew colder as Alex stepped inside. The dying sunlight struggled to penetrate the thick canopy of leaves overhead. Twisted branches clawed at the sky like grasping hands. The silence was eerie, broken only by the crunch of dead leaves beneath his feet. He wandered deeper, his eyes scanning the weather-beaten headstones. Each one a testament to a life lived and lost, a story left untold. He felt a strange sense of peace, surrounded by the spirits of the departed. It was as if their energy had seeped into the very ground he walked on. Then he saw it. In the distance, half hidden by overgrown ivy, stood a structure unlike the others. It wasn't a headstone but a mausoleum, its stone facade cold and imposing in the fading light. It drew him in, beckoning him closer with promises of forgotten secrets. The mausoleum was more imposing up close. Its once grand entrance was now cracked and weathered, the heavy oak door hanging slightly ajar. Alex ran his fingers over the cold stone, feeling the weight of centuries pressing down on him. He could sense a presence emanating from within, a palpable energy that sent a shiver down his spine. He pushed the door open, the sound echoing unnaturally loud in the stillness. The interior was dimly lit by a single flickering gas lamp that cast long, distorted shadows across the walls. Dust motes danced in the stale air, swirling like tiny ghosts disturbed from their slumber. In the center of the room stood a solitary sarcophagus, its surface adorned with intricate carvings. Alex cautiously approached the sarcophagus. He ran his hand over the cold, smooth surface, his fingers tracing the intricate designs. As he did so, he noticed a small inscription etched into the stone, barely visible beneath years of accumulated grime. He leaned closer, squinting to make out the words. "Let the sleeping dead lie," it read. His blood ran cold. He wished he had heeded the warning. A cold breath. The spirits stir. A sudden gust of wind slammed the mausoleum door shut with a deafening boom. The lamp flickered violently, casting grotesque shadows that danced across the walls like demons come to life. The temperature plummeted, and Alex could feel a presence in the room with him, something cold and unseen. He was no longer alone. Panic surged through him as he fumbled for the doorknob. It was no use. The door wouldn't budge. He was trapped. He spun around, his eyes darting about the dimly lit mausoleum, searching for the source of the sudden chill. Whispers slithered around him, cold and mournful, seeming to emanate from the very walls themselves. Then he saw them. Pale, translucent figures began to coalesce from the shadows, their forms shimmering like heat waves in the cold air. Their eyes glowed with an eerie light, filled with a mixture of sadness and anger. They had been awakened and they were not pleased. The figures drew closer, their sorrowful moans echoing around him, each one filled with an unbearable sadness. Their forms were indistinct, their features blurred and shifting, but he could sense their pain, their anguish at being trapped for so long. They reached out towards him with spectral hands, their touch sending icy shivers down his spine. "Help us," they whispered, their voices a chorus of despair. "We are trapped, bound to this place. Free us." Fear threatened to consume him, but as he looked into their sorrowful eyes, he felt a surge of sympathy. They weren't malevolent entities, but lost souls seeking release from their prison. Their pleas sparked a glimmer of determination within him. He had to help them. He had to find a way to free them from their torment. He remembered the inscription on the sarcophagus, the warning that he had foolishly ignored. Perhaps it held the key to their release. Alex fought his way back to the sarcophagus, pushing past the spectral figures that surrounded him. Their cold touch sent shivers through him, but he pressed on, his heart pounding in his chest. He had to decipher the inscription, to understand its meaning. It was his only hope, his only chance to right his wrong. He ran his trembling fingers over the inscription once more, feeling the weight of each word. "Let the sleeping dead lie." What did it mean? Suddenly, it struck him. The lamp! He had disturbed their rest by bringing light into their darkness. He had to extinguish the flame. With renewed determination, he scrambled to his feet and stumbled towards the flickering gas lamp. The spectral figures reached for him, their icy fingers brushing against his skin, but he swatted them away, his eyes fixed on his goal. He had to do this. He had to set them free. As his hand closed around the cold metal of the lamp, the spectral figures cried out in anguish. Their forms writhed and twisted, their ghostly moans echoing through the mausoleum. But Alex was resolute. He extinguished the flame, plunging the room into absolute darkness. For a moment there was silence, a heavy, suffocating silence that pressed down on him like a physical weight. Then a rush of cold air slammed against him, throwing him back against the sarcophagus. He could hear the spectral figures receding, their mournful cries fading into the darkness as they were pulled back into the shadows. The heavy oak door creaked open, as if compelled by an unseen force. Alex didn't hesitate. He scrambled to his feet and raced out of the mausoleum, his lungs burning as he sucked in deep breaths of the cold night air. He didn't stop running until he reached the relative safety of his home, the memory of the spectral figures seared into his mind. The events of that night changed Alex. He was no longer the carefree boy who had wandered into the graveyard seeking adventure. He had looked into the abyss, stared into the eyes of the restless dead, and he would never be the same. He carried the weight of their sorrow, the burden of their unanswered pleas. He never spoke of what he had seen, but the memory lingered, a shadow lurking at the edge of his thoughts. He had escaped the graveyard, but a part of it remained with him, a constant reminder of the darkness that lurked beneath the surface of the world, and the price of disturbing the sleeping dead. The graveyard held no more allure for Alex. He understood its silence now, the weight of its sorrow. It was a place of peace, a place of rest, and he had learned the hard way that some doors are better left unopened.